Good afternoon, folks. Had a little happy music there to get everybody in the spirit there a little bit. It's April 15th, 2014, 6 p.m. here at City Hall, 116th West Bridge Street, Granbury, Texas. I now call the City Council to order. I'd like to call upon Steve Roberts, the first counselor of the Bishop Church of Christ, Latter-day Saints, to lead us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the Texas Pledge. All rise, please.
Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we're indeed grateful for all the many blessings that Thou hast poured out upon us. We're grateful for this great nation and for this wonderful community that we live in. We pray that Thou will continue to bless this city and bless this council with wisdom and guidance in their decisions. Father, we're grateful for those that defend our freedoms. We're grateful for our police officers and our firemen. We pray that Thou will bless them and keep them safe. Father, we love Thee and we love Thy Son, and we're grateful for His atonement. And we pray that we will always remember Him. In His holy name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. At this time, I'd like to call upon Manette Sicard and Mike McMahon. If you could approach the bench there. I would like to at this time read a proclamation for the week of Bible reading for April 25th to May the 1st, 2014, and also the National Day of Prayer, May the 1st, 2014. The proclamation reads, whereas among the great books produced throughout the history of mankind, the Bible has been prized above all others by generations of men and women around the world, by people of every age, every race, and every walk of life. Whereas the Bible has made a unique contribution in shaping the United States as a distinctive and blessed nation and people. Whereas it was a biblical view of man, one affirming the dignity and the worth of the human person, made in the image of our Creator, that inspired the principles upon which the United States is founded. Whereas today, the Bible continues to give courage and direction to those who seek truth and righteousness. In recognizing its enduring value, we recall the words of the prophet Isaiah, who declared, the grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of God shall stand forever. Now, therefore, I invite all of Granbury people to discover the great inspiration and knowledge that can be obtained through thoughtful reading of the Bible. And I, Nin Hewlett, Mayor of the City of Granbury, County seat of Hood County, Texas, do proclaim the time of April 25th, May the 1st, 2014, as a week of public reading of the Bible. And whereas throughout our history, Americans have turned to prayer and reflection during times of strength and weakness, and in moments of joy and despair, seeking comfort, giving thanks, and asking for guidance and grace. Now, therefore, I invite all of Granbury people to again this year to join together in prayer on Thursday, May the 1st, for the 63rd Annual National Day of Prayer. And I, Nin Hewlett, the Mayor of City of Granbury, County seat of Hood County, Texas, do proclaim May the 1st, 2014 as the National Day of Prayer. Thank you very much. I'll do that for you if you want, or you can go ahead and do that. Yes, sir.
I would like to invite you and anyone else who is here tonight to sign up. We still have plenty of spots available. We begin April the 25th, 7 a.m., and Senator Birdwell will be there to help us open. And then we'll run every night until 9 o'clock, except for Thursday, which we close at 12 in order to honor the National Day of Prayer. Call me Fellowship Church of Hood County. We've got some slots. Thank you.
I might follow in Mike's footsteps and invite all of you to the National Day of Prayer breakfast on May 1st at 6 o'clock in the morning to 7:30 at the Conference Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette. And I will say, get there early. It's a big occasion, and it should be, and a lot of folks turn out there. It's a well-welcomed occasion. We'll now move into the consent agenda. The approval of the minutes of the council meeting of April 1st, 2014, and also to consider and approve a resolution supporting the certification of a cultural district by the Texas Commission on Arts to be located within the city of Granbury and to be named the Historical Granbury Arts and Cultural District. Council, you had an opportunity to read over the minutes. Also, we discussed the cultural district in the last council meeting. Are there any concerns or discussion on the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Allen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilman Couch. Is there any more discussion, council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is approved. Now we will move into the deliberation agenda. The deliberation agenda we have before us here, I'm going to read both of them again. This is the one that we tabled at the April 1st, if you remember, the April 1st, the council meeting, one regarding Mike Brown's specific use. The first one being the public hearing regarding a request of Mike Brown for specific use permit to allow sales of new used autos in a heavy commercial district and consider and approve an ordinance providing for the said SUP. The property is located at the corner of Highway 377 and Sardias Boulevard. The other one is the public hearing regarding a request of Mike Brown to preliminary plat a 10.31 acre tract of the Joshua Minette Survey, abstract number 351, as Lot 1, Block 1 of the Mike Brown Dodge Edition, and consider and approve the said preliminary plat. This property is located, this property is located at the corner of Highway 377 and Sardinas Boulevard. Council, as you remember, we had some items on there that were kind of in some gray area, and we did table this, and we went back to the drawing board a little bit. So I'm going to ask Scott Sopchak to go ahead and let us know what we've come up with here.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager. A little bit of history, as you can see on the aerial photography, that the area in question is denoted in red, bounded in a darker red. It's currently zoned heavy commercial. As discussed at the last council meeting, heavy commercial allows for new car sales, an auto dealer with new car sales by right without going through any public hearing. The SUP that is being requested by the applicant is for used car sales on the site as well. So we would not be going through this process had not the applicant requested the outdoor presentation and display of used cars as well on site. The property is currently also in survey. Under our subdivision ordinance, it's in order to entertain any kind of building permit activity, it requires that it be taken out of survey into a legal lot of record filed at the county courthouse with all duly designated easements, fire lanes, etc., and the proper dedication language. The second application before you is a preliminary plat, which shows the site design, geometric site design of the development itself with all the easements intact. We also have building elevations as a part of the proposal as well. During the last public hearing, there were some discussions regarding the northernmost drive, and the developer actually took some of those comments back, got with the site designers, and there's been some modifications of the site plan based on the deliberations of the last council meeting. And I'll go through them really quickly. The first of which is the elimination of the northernmost drive. That was just taken out completely. And the fire lane has since been rerouted from the second drive, previously from the north, and the alteration of the, let me get to a site plan here. There we go. So you can see the elimination of the northernmost drive, and it was good that we tabled it because I wanted some input from the fire inspector. The fire inspector worked with our driveway throat design requirements, widened the throat width from 24 to 30 feet, and you could see on what was previously the second drive from the north, now the northernmost drive, actually has a wider turning radius to accommodate emergency EMS and commercial vehicle movements coming from that location to get to the back side of the building for EMS response. So that's the first of which. You can see generally the island is still in place, intact, just to the north of that drive. But the alteration first was the elimination of the northernmost drive, the widening of the throat width of the second drive, the increased radius width to allow for EMS turning vehicles to get behind the building. The second proposed change on the site plan is the placement of a proposed decorative double-sided fence with columns on 25-foot centers along Sardius Boulevard, connecting from the residential stockade fence all the way south along Sardius Boulevard, ending at the curvature tangent point, which is denoted by that dashed line. So the applicant has agreed to screen what is that bottom area or that detention area that comes out of that head wall. I can show you the detention area along Sardius Boulevard, and that is the same type of screening that's adjacent to the residents around the Toyota area. So you'll get a consistency when you drive actually in from Sardius Boulevard. On looking to the east and to the west, you'll get somewhat of a consistency with the double-sided decorative fence on 25-foot stone columns in the area entering into Gemstone Estates. Okay. The next question that was brought up was, I believe, brought up by Councilman Couch regarding the landscaping in the island. This was actually approved at the previous P&Z meeting. A tree conservation plan, if you could see to the south, there's a proposal to preserve trees, and it's somewhat punitive if they take out mature hardwoods. So the applicant had to go before P&Z and get what's called a tree conservation plan approved. And you can see to the south of the screen that clump of trees that they designed around in order to preserve that. As a part of the tree preservation plan, they also had to install caliper inches within the site design itself outside of that preserved area. And you can see the landscape island just south of the northernmost entrance that was eliminated that has a row of hardwood trees planted. I can tell you, looking at the area set aside for xeriscape, that island will also have a great amount of landscaping as well. We don't have a detailed landscaping plan as of yet because those are generally filed with the building plans. But the zoning ordinance requires 20% area set aside for xeriscape, and 40% of that 20% has to be between the building and the streetscape. So there's going to be, in looking at the available grass area, you can see that a large amount of that landscaping will be in those landscape islands to accommodate it. And there's ample area to actually from those hardwoods along Sardius, step down or tear down some of the landscaping to help shield or buffer the commercial area from Sardius Boulevard. So those are the three major modifications that has since taken place based on some of the discussions from the previous city council meeting. And the other point that I do want to bring up is Councilman Allen at the last meeting, I believe, asked for the minutes. I think that was forwarded to all of you to see specifically what was deliberated on by P&Z. I know some of those conditions centered on the northernmost drive, so that condition is no longer in play. As a procedural matter, if you want to work off and use the revised site plan that was offered by the applicant to begin these deliberations as kind of a hinge point, to make your motion, you're more than welcome to, accepting the site design, or if you want to make some modifications or adjustment, you can certainly do that. But since this is a documented submittal by the applicant, we can easily roll that into the adoption ordinance and have it as a ministerial type of a document to ensure that all those things are in place to make sure the SUP is valid, if that makes sense. So with that, Mayor, Council, I'll be happy to entertain any questions should you have any.
Thank you, Scott. Looks like they would address most of the items that the citizens and the council brought up. So with this, I'll open the public hearing. We have several people today that's going to speak at the public hearing. We'll start out with Ms. Rita Hart. Please state your name and your address and
Rita, initial M, Hart, 201 Sardius Boulevard, Granbury, Texas. Ready? I have a prepared statement I would like to read. I have copies for you if you would like. To the City Council. Picture this. You've downsized your home in Pecan and moved to a quiet little Ozzie and Harriet neighborhood. There's not much lawn to take care of. The little houses are only about 20 feet from Sardius, our street, but that's fine. Sardius is a nice, broad road with very little traffic. It's quiet, and the children can ride their bicycles there safely. Directly across the street is a very large piece of land, maybe about 100 acres or so. It goes all the way to 377. Entrances can easily be built there. Even if you build another road parallel to Sardius, from 377, there is plenty of room so as not to interfere with the neighborhood. Until recently, the neighbors were certainly not worried about commercial entrances being built right in front of their homes. That would be ridiculous. Who would want to destroy our lifestyle, the safety of our children, and the values of our homes by doing that, especially when a road can be cut directly from 377? That's the solution, and that's what we're asking. Thank you. If anyone would like a copy of what I just read, I'll be happy to give it to you.
we'll have a copy of it. Our next speaker will be Richard Winters.
My name is Richard Winters. I live at 211 Sardius Boulevard in Gemstone Estates.
Pull that mic up a little bit there.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. There you go.
There you go. Before we get started, I'd like to, if you could pull the site plan back up with the fencing, so I can see that with the green line. And I guess this will be for you, Mr. Sopcich, real quick, because I'm not understanding this plat. How far does that fence go up? Does it go up to the next entrance? Or does it cover all the homes that face Sardius? So it wouldn't, it's not really covering all the homes on Sardius or as a screen device? Okay. Well, there's a few issues I was going to bring up. Some have been corrected since the last meeting where the third entrance is gone. One of the issues I do want to bring up is that by ordinance, Sardius Boulevard is not a commercial truck route. It's not posted as a truck route. Therefore, commercial motor vehicles have no reason to be down Sardius unless they're making a delivery to or from a residence down in the neighborhood. So I don't understand why we're allowing him to put his commercial traffic out onto a residential street. By ordinance, they're prohibited from going onto. And that's what I'm reading under section 12 of the city ordinances. There are exceptions, you know, if they have, it's the only route to and from that place that they're making a delivery. So if we're forcing them to come in the front, why are we allowing them to come out on a non-truck route? Why can't we force them right back out onto the truck route where they came from? You know, he's doing it at his other two businesses. It obviously works because he's still in business. So why can't we make him do that with his current business? There's no reason for the big 18-wheelers and bobtail trucks to be coming out on a residential street. As far as a screening device, we're asking for a screening device that would at least cover all the homes. It would screen the homes that are on Sardius from this. It looks like to maybe another 40, 50 feet of screening device would cover all the homes on Sardius. From 201 on down would be screened from seeing his property. You know, I don't know why we can't just make an adjustment to moving on up a little further, since the driveway's already been canceled out. That'll help offset some of the property devaluation that we can expect to have on our property because of the heavy commercial business across from us. You know, talking to appraisal district personnel, heavy construction, you know, nuisances, industrials type stuff like that does have an issue or a effect on your property evaluation, where a screening device can offset some of that. We all know that lake views get good property evaluations, where people that look at commercial businesses are going to get less of an evaluation. And one last thing is I want to say is that the city of Granbury elected you, or the citizens of Granbury elected you, the council members, to help lead the city into the future, to keep the city out of the red ink, and to make good decisions that benefit the city and citizens as a whole. We elected you to be the voice of the people for the city and the citizens. And tonight, the citizens are here expressing their concerns over the proposed business. Be it 1 or 100, we are here tonight expressing our concerns to you. We ask that you make the right decisions for us that live in the neighborhood that will be the most affected by this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Doug Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Doug Long. I live at 209 Sardius Boulevard. Many of my concerns were addressed, first of all, by the changes in the design and also by the eloquent people who spoke before me. I just want to reiterate a couple of the points. We have a lot of children that live, there's the cul-de-sac on Jacinth there, as well as Sardius has several children that play regularly out on that street. And as I said before, I don't have children, but I know that they're there a lot. And the extra commercial traffic really bothers me. That in addition to what it does to the street. And the fact that his other business, trucks come in and out from 377, I don't know why it couldn't be the same way at that one. And I'd like to also reiterate what Richard said about you all being elected by the people to represent all the citizens of Granbury, and we appreciate all the things you do for our city, and we'd just like you to keep us in mind when you're addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Trish Reiner.
Good evening. My name is Trish Reiner. I live at 203 Sardius Boulevard. I'm here today to speak again regarding the design of the impending Mike Brown dealership that will be directly across from my home. As a professional, I'm going to just reiterate what I had said at the last meeting and add a couple of different points. As a professional in Granbury, I understand the need for growth of business in our community. Without a large business base, Granbury must heavily rely on other avenues for its economic growth. However, even though I'm a proponent of business growth, as a homeowner and mother of 2 young girls, I hold a firm belief that growth should be done responsibly and with the best interest in mind of not only the business itself, but also the neighbors it affects. My concerns, again, are as follows. And I know that some of these have been addressed. I'm absolutely thrilled that that third driveway is now eliminated. It appears that that fence line, unfortunately, does not cover perhaps my home and the home of 201, which is my adjacent neighbor. My concern is that the value of my home will be reduced due to that unsightly view. We're still going to be looking at a car lot right out front our windows. The plans did include those 3 driveways, of which one has been eliminated. But but the one near the cul-de-sac will still cause an abnormal amount of overflow traffic if it's left open from both delivery trucks and those wishing to test drive vehicles in our neighborhood. My concerns on that driveway is still as follows. Busloads of children several times per day, ranging in age from elementary to high school students, beginning at 7:09 in the morning and ending after 5, will be in jeopardy due to the fact that the bus drops off and picks up for GISD on the corner of Jacinth, where the fence line and that proposed second driveway will be, and the special needs bus drops off right near there. We have some special needs folks in our area, and that bus drops off there as well. During all hours of the day, not strictly after business hours, our neighborhood children, of course, are riding their bikes, walking their dogs, and throwing their footballs in the street because there's no play area anywhere near our subdivision. Delivery trucks of any size have a naturally limited view, and if a child were to run in the street unexpectedly and not be seen, the result would be disastrous. There was some confusion as to the language proposed that the deliveries would be made via 377. My feeling is that that language was quite clear. A delivery is a series of 3 pieces: entry, drop-off, and egress. And once those 3 things are completed, that delivery is made. And all of those 3 pieces have been completed for quite some time at additional dealerships on that road. And to me, it seems that if those have successfully been made through the other dealerships, there's no reason to have 2 driveways on Sardius Boulevard. All of those egresses and entries can be made on 377, such as they've been doing for the last few years on the other dealerships. We are not asking for the moon. We are simply asking for respect. The privacy fence and the reduction to our children's risk factor for safety is not an unprecedented concept. I believe it's a compromise that would benefit homeowners directly affected by this dealership without affecting the goal of the owners of the dealership as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Our next speaker will be Mackenzie Reiner.
My name is Mackenzie Reiner, and I live at 203 Sardius Boulevard. I would like to make a brief statement regarding the proposed design of the car dealership that will be located directly across the street from my home. It is my concern that the children of my neighborhood, including schoolmates and personal friends, will be put at risk by the proposed driveways due to the cars and trucks entering and exiting the dealership on a regular basis. We currently have no recreational area except the streets on which we live. Not only during the summer, but throughout the year, many children have limited or no access to transport to public parks. I would ask the owner of the dealership to be a good neighbor and take the concerns that come directly from the kids they affect seriously, and to please consider moving the additional driveways on Sardius Boulevard. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And our next speaker is, oh, here it is, David Southern. Put your address, but don't.
Thank you. I live at 226 East Pearl, but I also own a home on Sardius right across from the new dealership. It's a community home for folks with intellectual disabilities. We have one person who lives in that home who rides the school bus home and is dropped off there right at the cul-de-sac area, which is immediately across the street from one of the entrances. So we have, I think there have been vast improvements on the plan from when it left planning and zoning, and I compliment the council and the community development department and Mike Brown Ford on making those changes. I do believe the residential fence, as has been stated several times, should run in front of all the residences up to the commercial property across the street that Jerry Durant owns. Also believe that probably the second entrance is really not needed since they redesigned the interior streets to accommodate the deliveries. The first opening is, I think, not a problem because it is across from commercial property, but would request that that be a right turnout only, so people could come in there and turn right out back to the highway rather than using a residential collector street for heavy trucks and demonstrated driving. Usually people, when they're demoing a car, are not driving as carefully as when they drive their own vehicles. So I think one entrance on that side, that's all the highway department has allowed them on the front of the entrance, is one entrance. So I think one entrance on that side would be also a good idea. Another item that was addressed at planning and zoning that I was not at your last meeting, but I have not heard addressed, was the speaker system at the new dealership. I know currently some of the neighborhood hear loud speaker calls from the other dealerships there, not from Jerry Durant, because he uses a different system that is a closed system with each person, whereas the other dealerships that exist there now are using a loud speaker system that can be heard over the entire neighborhood. This one will be even closer, and I know Mike agreed to look at what he could do about that, and I haven't heard if there's been any more on that from planning and zoning meeting until now. So those are our concerns. We appreciate your help, and we think the neighborhood will be better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak on this issue that has not signed up? I see a hand back there. Hello? Go ahead and state your name and address, and then later on, if you would, please fill out a sheet so that... Oh, you got one? That's okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you. Ms. Claudia Southern.
My name is Claudia Southern, and I live at 226 East Pearl Street, and I own the property at Sardius Boulevard at 205. We have a group home for folks with intellectual disabilities, and we have great neighbors out on Sardius Boulevard. Both our neighbors who live residentially and also our neighbor who has commercial property. I really appreciate the amount of work that you all have done in the 2 weeks since we met before, and I am thrilled that we are going to have a screening fence. I think that is absolutely necessary and something we have done all over Granbury. I would ask that it come all the way to cover all the houses. I'm thrilled that we are no longer going to have the third entrance, and am so thrilled with the fire chief for showing us a way to handle that. It would be to the benefit of the children of the neighborhood if we could also somehow let go of that second entrance. Children are not always wonderful when they're getting off the bus, and that is exactly where they get off the bus. Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that adults are not also okay sometimes when children are getting off the bus. A problem that we're having in Texas is that adults in other vehicles do not always obey those stop signs when children are getting off the school bus. So I really feel like we need to protect those children. I also feel like we need to recognize what an asset that the Mike Brown family is to our commercial properties, and I think that the people at Sardius and the rest of Gemstone want to be good neighbors. We want to be able to appreciate each other. Ours is a community where commercial and residential properties blend. We just need to do a little bit to make sure that they blend to protect our children. And somehow I want to protect Mike Brown from the little skateboarders and bicycle riders and all that might get over there with his new cars and so on. And I have a couple of grandchildren who do all of that, and while they don't do that on Sardius, they're not very respectful always of vehicles. So I think it's also in the Brown family of vehicles advantage to protect that as well. I really appreciate all of your work. I really appreciate the landscaping that's going to go in, and I don't think we have much more to do to where the Sardius neighbors and Mike Brown can be really, really good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak on this?
There's another lady back there, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I came a little late, so.
Okay, you can do that afterwards.
Okay. My name is Ellen Rowell. I reside at 213 Sardius Boulevard. And I, too, would like to express my appreciation to the City Council for the efforts they have made to help our neighborhood. I had a couple of questions. The first being is that second entrance that goes into the service department. One of my concerns was not just that bus stop, but the children that play there. If you do end up keeping that second entrance, is it possible to put a speed bump or something that slows these people down that are coming off of 377 into the neighborhood that may not realize that there are kids playing and that kind of thing? Is it possible? I don't know. And then also, it's hard to tell, but they said that the trees that were lining the way are now a fence. Is that correct? Over there? Oh, there it is. Thank you. And I would also like to reiterate the fact that it would be nice if that could come all the way down past all of the houses. That would be great. But again, thank you so much for y'all's efforts, and thank you for listening to us. Granbury's a community. When I moved here 10 years ago, I moved here because of the community feeling that Granbury has always had. We didn't know it was going to be a dealership at the time. When we moved in, it was supposed to be hospital administration and doctor's offices. And then later on, somebody said it was supposed to be a fire department. And then it became a used car dealership. So I appreciate the fact that y'all are listening to what the community says and that our voices are being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this public hearing? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Council, you've heard from several citizens, and you've heard from Scott there. I'm sure you've got questions probably for Mike. Is Mike Brown?
Yes.
I'm sure you've got questions for Mike Brown. So, Mike, if you would, please. Council, do you have any questions to address to Mike Brown? Mr. Couch, I see you.
Mayor, I really have a couple questions for Scott first.
Okay.
I want to address the gentleman that spoke second. Scott, would you talk to us about this commercial route in our ordinance as he referred to section 12?
If I can, I will actually, I saw Alva here, and he actually handles driveway permitting. So are you familiar with Article 12 of the Code of Ordinances? Well, we have width and throat standards, but regarding commercial routes for driveways and approaches permitted. We can get a copy of the Code of Ordinances and reflect on it while we're deliberating.
Well, I want to be sure that we're on good ground here if we do this,
Sure.
and it doesn't come back in some sort of violation of our own ordinance. So I think that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get a Code of Ordinances. I can tell you building inspections administers the driveway permitting process, and I would defer to that department.
Okay, you know, the first lady that spoke, she was talking about this second entrance that's possible on 377. At our last meeting, I got the sense that was not a possibility, that TxDOT wouldn't allow that.
I can tell you, in working with TxDOT over my 20 years, they really promote single on-site ingress egress throughout the site, and they really limit the amount of approaches on 377. And when you have two properties actually platted one against the other, sometimes they'll force shared access points. And in this case, I'm not overly familiar with this particular application, but the architect who's in the audience may have coordinated with TxDOT on the permitting of this approach. So again, I would defer to him. Generally, when we're at this stage, preliminary discussions and expectations from TxDOT are somewhat known before site design, and you're showing concept layouts of fire lanes being depicted on a plat. So if you can, I'd like to defer to the architect to see what kind of correspondence he has from TxDOT regarding this approach, and possibly a second one.
Ron Ham with Speed Factory out of Fort Worth. Yes, Mike and I, we went through the TxDOT procedure, the process, met with them, had the meeting, and they were going to allow one entrance and one entrance only at that location. We wanted it in the center of the property, but they would not allow that. So what you see on there is exactly what they would approve and will allow, and there's nothing more that we could do. We could take it to the state level and try and protest, but that wasn't going to happen.
That wasn't a desired design of the property in any shape, form, or fashion.
What would be the reason that they wouldn't allow a center entrance?
You'd have to ask them.
Oh, it's the
It has to do with
distance from
speed limit,
yeah.
footage from corner to corner or entrance to entrance. They have a formula that they have a maximum and a minimum, and unless they make an exception, which for TxDOT is pretty rare, that's as good as we could get. They have to grant you an entrance, but they can tell you where to put it.
And that's consistent with what I'm familiar with. They do have a mathematical formula based on speed, posted speed, and its separation from access point to access point. They really promote mobility instead of access on these types of facilities.
Well, Mike, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work you've gone to help accommodate the neighbors. I also appreciate everyone that spoke tonight and your concerns. But I need clarification on something. If Mr. Brown decides not to do used cars there, what could happen?
If his proposal is to put a Dodge dealership with no used cars and just new car display, we would not be deliberating on this SUP.
Go through with 3 exits with 3 entrances on Sardius?
What would probably happen is he would, or his contractor would submit driveway access permits on the local road, and provided that they met the local criteria, and I would defer to the attorney on this, we have somewhat of a ministerial obligation to consider the application.
Okay. Well, that's one concern of mine.
I was going to say, our attorney has your code of ordinance here, if you want to hear that right now.
Yes, please.
But I do want to add one thing. I think the reviewer has some kind of obligation to look at the uniqueness of the adjoining properties to permit appropriately access points and work with the developer on where they need to be, and not be overly restrictive, but to find some common ground where it's beneficial to both property owners based on placement.
Okay, Councilman Couch, with regards to Article 12, you asked about the commercial truck routes in the code. In Article 12.05.002 of the City Code, it says that through commercial vehicles shall not be allowed on streets or boulevards that are not designated truck routes. Now, a through commercial vehicle is defined as a truck whose origin is not the city. So that's a truck that's just trying to bypass the highway and go to Dallas or Fort Worth or wherever he's going. So the only designated truck routes that the city has are 377, 567, 144, Pearl Street, and Biloxi Highway. So basically your highways are designated as truck routes. Those are the ones when trucks are coming into the city and leaving the city to go somewhere else, whether they're going to Weatherford, Fort Worth, Toller, wherever. That's the roads that they can take. They can't drive the back roads of Granbury. As far as commercial vehicles in residential areas like this one, The only regulations we have on the books here is that a commercial motor vehicle like the truck would not be permitted to stop, park, or leave standing in the residential area for a period more than 3 hours. And in fact, we have commercial vehicles that drive on these city streets every single week with the garbage truck that goes through. And so, because they don't stop and stand for a period of 3 hours at a time, it's not unlawful under the code. I hope that answers your question.
So, we wouldn't be violating our own ordinance with approving the exits off of Sardius?
Not unless he's going to park his trucks in the middle of Sardius for 3 hours.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I would like just to hear other discussion. I may have a proposal here, but I'd like to hear from other council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cott. Council, any other discussion on this issue?
Mayor, I've got a couple questions.
Councilman Allen.
First, I want to thank the citizens for being involved here. I went through the same thing when I lived in Virginia a few years ago. And thank Mike Brown for his architect, engineer, for trying to work with the citizens. I've been on the council 4 years, and this is probably going to be the toughest decision to make tonight for me. But it's kind of like the old saying, which one was here first, the egg or the chicken? And that sticks in my head and it bothers me. But Mike, last time you were up here, you said delivery was going to be at night most of the time?
I said they will have deliveries at night.
Would you say the biggest percent would be in daylight or night?
Well, deliveries, all encompassing.
Like truck deliveries, whatever's going to go through the second gate.
During the day.
During the day? Okay.
During business hours. And I'm including UPS, FedEx, I'm including everything.
Sure. And I can't remember who it was talking about the speed bump, the last speaker. We have done that over on 4th Street, I believe, or in Southtown. We put some speed bumps down through there. Would you have any objections to that?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea, actually.
Okay. And
I'd like some of them on the lot, as a matter of fact.
I hear you. No, and I know, you said you can tell your salesman and people, don't drive down through there.
We put a memo out. I have 2 payrolls. I didn't get, after the meeting, I didn't have an opportunity to get to get it on the last weekly payroll, but we have a 1st, a 15th, and bi-weekly payrolls, and I've instructed my comptroller, and the checks went out to the managers, my managers today with a memo on it, asking them to inform their people that the residential area was not to be used for through traffic for test drives or a demonstration route. So I've put my people on notice, and I think they'll abide by that. I don't have a reason for them not to. If you're doing a test drive, it's just as easy to go down to the next exit and make a big route. You got some bumpy roads there, that kind of thing. Same way with your test vehicles that you have to test after you've done repairs on them or that type of thing. But I have put out a memo, and I will put out 2 other memos that go with the or one other that goes with the bi-weekly payroll too.
One other question is, they were talking about the speaker, and I know you said you was going to address that. That would be for your new store you're talking about?
I'm in a quandary over that, how that worked, and I talked to Jerry Saturday, and he kind of referred me to his folks at the Toyota store, but I'm not quite understanding how they work their paging system. I'm just going to have to get into it and find out why or what they do, and if it's feasible for me. I can't demand that all my people have iPhones or that kind of thing. Actually, it's against OSHA rules for your service department technicians to be on iPhones or be on a cell phone in the shop. So I don't know how he does that, whether he has a runner or what, or he's not, or he doesn't care about the other. if there's another way to do it, I'd be happy to, but one of the main concerns with our business, as I'm sure it is with any business, is that a customer wants to talk when they call and asking about their concerns. They want to be talked to.
Sure.
So far, I haven't figured anything out. We try to keep it as, we have extensions. The extensions are, the operators have been instructed when possible. In other words, if the operator's sitting there and she calls and asks for Michael Whitfield, and she sees him sitting at the desk, she'll dial him.
Mm-hmm.
She won't pay. We don't page just to page. The biggest paging is done, frankly, when somebody, when we ring it back to the service department and there's not an answer, it kicks back to the operator, and then the operator has to page, for instance, a service advisor or something like that. So,
And on that second entrance in, you said it was going to be straight into the building, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Into your service department?
Service drive, yes.
Service drive?
Yes.
Okay, last question for Scott. Is there signs that the city can put up, like no through street? No, we can't do that because it is a through street, but is there something we can put up down through there other than speed? We could put speed bumps up, and maybe you can go all the way through the neighborhood with speed bumps, all through that, straight through the road there. But is there some signs we can put up or anything like that?
That may be something, I know when we actually did the speed bumps, and Alva helped me out here, I know we have a traffic committee, so maybe you and the police chief need to revisit that and look at the proposal by council, take it to the traffic committee, and then come back to council.
Because I promise you, I used to cut back behind the Sonic to go home. After two speed bumps, I quit doing that. And it slows you down. And but anyway, I think it's...
Tony, I mean, I think the speed bump's a good idea, but you'd have to really be getting on it, as they say, before you got to the driveway. I mean, it's not, that ain't far enough to build up a big amount of speed if you're just, even.
I agree with you, Mike, but I'm thinking further down the street there, if people are using that for a boulevard, for a shortcut to go back on Old Granbury Road, they could have 4 or 5 down through there, and that'd stop that traffic behind your dealership.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And that directive can be actually made to council or to Alva with the traffic committee, not just at this one location, but Sardius as a whole through the entire residential development with the signs.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Councilperson Myers?
I appreciate your work on this too, Mr. Brown. I think that perhaps putting a speed bump closer to the first entrance with, again, I'd like some questioning around signage. Can we put signage up that says children playing at that first speed bump? And what is the possibility of, if we have to have the second entrance, us putting a stop sign there and having them have to come to a complete stop in order to turn left and have only a left turn in and a right turn out of that entrance?
Yeah. Those are all very good, valid points. And again, I think the police chief and our public works director need to take that to the committee and come back with a report on how to slow traffic down. Certainly the speed bumps, I would think, would curtail test drives through the area, but traffic signs and control devices, they can look at the entire residential area as a package on how to best approach managing traffic through there and calming traffic.
And if we force them to turn right coming out, they're not going to test drive through the neighborhood. So I think that would be something that's really important, is making them stop at the entrance and having a turn in and a right turn out.
And just as a sidebar comment with respect to these approaches, you have the latitude under this SUP under these conditions, to manage how those approaches operate. So if you think they're fine as a two-way or egress only at whatever one you want to enumerate on the site plan, based on some of the discussions and safety concerns that you have heard here tonight, you can certainly place those conditions on those points of access.
And I think that a lot of these were addressed the last time, and that a lot of this exists right now. I mean, as far as the test driving and things like that on Sardius. So, you know, some of the things, the speed bumps especially, I know those speed bumps are pretty hard on a lot of cars if you jump across them. So that's going to be pretty effective right there in itself, just to get people's attention and probably keep the test drivers off there unless they want to test drive a car on how they do on speed bumps. But,
Well, I might add that I don't think there's a lot of that goes on.
well, I mean, some of
For
them.
the most part, they go out 377 now and come back in 377. If you look at the design, if you test drove a car, you're going to have to go backwards toward the service drive to go out, to go turn right, to take another right, to go out 377. You're for the most part, you're going to be pulling up into customer parking and going out your 377 exit, and that's where they're going to be. That's the natural flow for the test drive. But I'm not saying it won't happen, but you know, I don't think I really don't think that's an issue.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, please.
Councilman Parsons?
What time does the service department begin receiving cars, and what time do they quit letting cars go?
7 to 7, I believe. 7 to 6.
7 to 6?
Yeah, I think 7 to 6.
One of the items I think was addressed by one of the citizens, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that, did I hear somebody say that the bus stop was right there at that entryway?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Now, I do believe we can get with the Granbury ISD, and I'm sure we could change that somewhat. I mean, give or take a block or so, or whatever it is. I don't think those are designated areas that have to be right there. So I'd want to go ahead and pursue that also, and consider moving that bus stop to another location that would be a little more safer for the students and stuff. And I don't think that would be a problem. Council, do we have any more concerns for Mike Brown?
I've got something to say.
Mr. Perkle.
I think this is the perfect case to show, I know that Mike Brown has worked with the developer, but the developers need to know what they're doing when they do subdevelopments. That if they know it's going to be there, I know that you can't always stop a residential from, but if they know what's going to happen, we wouldn't be here. And I know they go through and check it, but still, it's something for us to think about, and especially the developers. That's the ones that sometimes overlook them.
Thank you, Mr. Perkle. Council, any more questions or concerns for Mike Brown? Councilman Couch.
Yes, Scott, can you bring up the Sardius elevation? Okay, looking at the east elevation, the fence pretty much stops where the building starts, right?
You want to respond to that, Ron?
What?
Yeah, it's close. It's right there.
I'm sorry.
It's right there at where the third entrance used to be. I don't think it lines right up with the building, but it's just right there in that area. I don't know exactly.
It terminates about the northern point of the entrance that was eliminated. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Leave that there. Mike, I wonder if you would consider this. You have 11 spaces between the first and second entrance. If you move those 11 spaces over to the bigger island, it would give you a much wider entrance. Is that a possibility that would get rid of that second entrance?
I don't understand your question.
Third.
You've got 11 spaces right here for cars. Okay. If you move those 11 spaces over here, or even make these spaces here, and then turn that radius a little harder, like this, to where this lane gets really wide going through here. Put a tree there. That would leave you with one entrance on the side. Would that be something that's a possibility?
No.
Okay. Is there a particular reason that you couldn't do that, or you wouldn't want to do that? I mean, I totally appreciate your point that you don't want to cover up your building with a screening fence. I totally get that, and I agree with you on that. But I'm wondering if we could shrink that down to that one entrance by moving those spaces over there. I think your neighbors would really be happy. You could put a stop sign at that first entrance and a right turn only exit. I think that...
I just can't do that and run my business. I mean, I appreciate everyone's concerns. I truly do. This project is not anywhere close to what I would like to have it be, starting with the 377 entrance. I have worked around TxDOT. I've worked around the trees. That's a very expensive issue. It's not cheap to redraw these plans every time something's tabled and we've got to redo it again. That's okay. I don't mind that. But I really do feel like I have done above and beyond. Like I say, I appreciate what everybody's saying. It's still a street. There's still cars on it. It is a commercial piece of property. I mean, this was all gone through with Scott, and I mean, we didn't. The third design was not even our idea. It wasn't the developer's idea. It was the fire chief's.
Yep.
That's why we didn't have an issue one way or the other. The fence, that's not something I mean, that's a kind of a pretty piece of property with a pretty nice looking oak tree in the middle of it. But if that's, that was a compromise that I didn't mind making. But we pretty well designed this thing down to where I just don't have a lot of wiggle room left.
Well, I appreciate, again, Mike, what you have done. I guess the last issue is the loudspeaker intercom system. Is there any way you could commit to doing without the loudspeaker intercom system and go to a whatever?
I wouldn't commit to doing it. I'd commit to trying to do it. And you just have to, I mean, I don't think there's many people in here that know me that doesn't know that I'll make every possible effort I can if there's a way. I mean, like I say, I'm going to have to get into it because I don't know. Frankly, I just don't know how Jerry does it. I don't know what he does. Jerry's got quite a bit of smaller operation than I do there. The service department is almost connected to the showroom floor. He's got a little different situation than I do. So, I don't know.
Is there a particular time of the day that you could stop using the intercom system?
Yeah, before 8 and after 6 when we close. I mean, that's another issue is that we're not, we're not in the Metroplex where I've got a store that stays open till 9 or 10 or 10:30 at night. We close at 5. We close at 5 on Saturdays. We close at 6 o'clock. During the week and 7 during the summer. It's still daylight. So
you could commit to using the loudspeaker intercom system between the hours of 8 and 6, and then also look into an alternative that would eliminate.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you're asking me to do something that I don't even have to do because we're not open. I mean, there's nobody that's there to use the speaker, other than those hours that we're open. 8 to 7, basically.
And you don't have an issue with right turn out only?
Yes, I do. Oh, you mean right, on
the Sardius exits?
Well, other than the customers that I might have in Gemstone, if I have any left, then, they're going to have to make a big block to get home. Or the people that live on the other side of Granbury Road that would like to go through there to get home. So, I don't have an issue, but you're going to have issues with it.
Well,
it's one of those things, you please one person, you're going to make another one mad. I mean,
And what could happen if we do say that is that they could go right across the street and then turn around in that cul-de-sac.
Right, to go up the next street.
And that,
Or go to the first.
well, I'm saying, for every response, there's a reaction, and I don't know what else I can do I mean, it is a commercial piece. Like I say, if it wasn't for the if we weren't talking about used cars, there's no discussion, basically. But I've done everything I know to do.
okay. So Scott, when it comes to a stop sign and speed bumps, we can handle that on, whenever we need to, right? That doesn't have to be part of this SUP.
It's my understanding that I think you're getting a clear message out to the Director of Public Works that he needs to coordinate a meeting regarding traffic control devices in this area with the police chief, and you can actually make that directive in your, in these minutes, saying you'd like the traffic committee to actually look at these issues brought up and reflect on these minutes, and then come back with a report, certainly.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Councilman Allen.
For you.
Pardon?
For you. You said a while ago that you thought you could get the Independent School District, Granbury, to move that bus stop down a block.
Oh, I'm saying that I think it can be moved. I mean, I'm sure that they put them places, they don't designate them just because that's a piece of land that they're supposed to put them there. I'm sure that could be moved. I'm not going to make a commitment here, but I don't see it a problem. Just like the things that Mike's talking about here, there's a lot of things that aren't an ordinance. There aren't there's not something that is restricted, like the noise. I hear it all over town. There's some of them I hear from the dealership out here, Classic, when I'm washing my car. So I know neighborhoods hear that loudspeaker, but I'm sure Mike is willing, and he has done already here with a lot of things. I'm sure if he's going to do anything he can to prevent that, he will do it, and along with the speed bumps, and I will take on if you ask me to do that, I'll take on that for the school district. Go ahead and make sure that we can get a different a bus stop there.
That's what I was asking.
Probably not a problem.
If you'd get with the school superintendent.
Sure, I'll do that.
I think if that's the case, we got probably everything worked out that
we've touched on everything. Yes, we have. Yeah. We have touched on everything.
Well,
Councilman Parker.
I don't support the second entrance as long as there's a school bus stop there. Their service department opens at 7, and between 7 and 8, which would probably be their busiest time of receiving cars, there are 3 public buses that stop there at that same corner. So I would be opposed to having the second entrance unless the school bus stop is moved.
Well, I can tell you, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Well, I don't know if I can vote on thinking there might not be a problem. We need a solution to that.
I will take care of that for you.
Why can't we make a motion where the school bus stop will be done, or it will not be approved tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I've one comment too about that bus stop. As one of the people that did approach the bench have special needs children, and like we have on our street in Water's Edge, some special needs children have to be dropped off right in front of their home, and that is right where that school bus stops currently.
Well, who has jurisdiction on bus stops?
Hang on. When situations change, when you put a road where the bus is stopping, then I'm sure that we will be moving that bus stop. I mean, there's no doubt that that bus stop will not be in a good place if there's an entryway right there. The bus stop that we've got on our street there, that they've moved that twice since I've been there, so, and sometimes they have to walk a little bit, the special needs, but they're going to make accommodations if they have to stop right in front of the person's house.
And that's why I say a stop sign is needed right there. If the bus has to stop there and we can't move it, then we absolutely have to have a stop sign there if these children have to get off at that corner.
I think we can do all those.
Okay, the stop sign wouldn't be part of the motion tonight.
What corner is it that the bus stops at?
Right there at the Sardis, right there at Descent.
At where the cul-de-sac is?
Mm-hmm, the Descent.
And you understand that the bus's door is on the right side, and all the residents are on the right side. There's not any crossing streets or anything like that.
He puts the stop sign out and everybody's supposed to
They don't
stop.
park on this side and let them out and walk across the street?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I hope they're coming in from 377, or I don't know which way they're coming in from, but they should be letting them out on that side of the...
Well, regardless, and when the bus stops, it puts a stop sign out, whether they're letting them out on the right or and have to cross over, that everybody stops on both sides of the bus.
Yeah. I agree.
Can I sit down?
Okay, Council. Is there any more questions for Mike Brown? Council. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Hey, Council. Scott, you got something?
Mayor, if the council is interested, we can go into a little bit of the procedural requirements of what we're dealing with on the two applications, just so we can see what options are available to council. We have two applications here. One's a preliminary plat. Procedurally, the preliminary plat gets processed, and then what you do is, under the preliminary plat, is going to give conceptual approval to the developer to actually start engineering design, i.e. water line loops, sewer line, all the public dedication. Now, that doesn't affect the drive placement or the fire lanes, which you can basically, it gives you a concept of where the fire lanes are going with relative to the approaches, but that can always be adjusted on the final plat. There's a 30-day statutory requirement on this, and we're actually approaching that 30-day statutory requirement. So
17th it will be, right?
yes. So the preliminary plat has to be acted on, and you can comfortably act on the preliminary plat. The zoning case, the SUP is more discretionary. There's no statutory timeline. So if you feel, and I've had over my 20 years, that you're still harvesting information and you still have concerns or you still need feedback, you can still table this, act on the preliminary plat, give the authorization to the applicant to do the engineering on the water line loop, for example, those public dedicated areas, the sewer line that's being dedicated to the public. That does not appear to be altered in any of these discussions. And then when they come back, either next available meeting, prior to filing the final plat, or dovetail it in with the final plat, you can open up the SUP then. If you want to investigate, for example, any GISD perspective on this. So, long story short, the time is running out on the preliminary. Statutorily, you need to act on the preliminary plat unless that's actually their 30-day requirement and continuance is actually presented by the applicant. There's no harm in acting on the preliminary tabling, the SUP. If you feel comfortable with what's being deliberated on tonight in order to make a motion on both the applications, you can certainly do that. Again, using the basis of the modified site plan that we have. So you have these options available to you. And certainly it's at your discretion how you want to handle the SUP. But the preliminary plat's a little tighter application where we have to act on it tonight.
Councilman Couch?
Scott, just clarify for me, are the entrances part of the preliminary plat?
The entrances are tied to the preliminary and final plat in a manner where they're dedicating the fire lanes, and that actually is looked at in DRC. But if you give a concept approval with a condition, say that we'll approve the preliminary plat with a condition knowing that there may be some adjustments in the fire lanes and the approach locations prior to filing the final, you certainly have the latitude to do that. These aren't public costs. It is dedicated to the public use, for example, but you can approve this preliminary plat, in essence, sans the fire lane easements shown, and ask for more research on the fire lane placement and the access point placement, and then have those adjusted placements on the final plat when the time comes.
Okay, that's something that I'd be comfortable with.
I got a question, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Allen.
Is that going to slow down that's not going to slow down the building of this building or anything like that?
No.
It slows down the entitlement side, which is cause for further deliberation to get the site design tighter if council sees it in that manner. But to be honest with you, if you approve the SUP and approve the final tonight, he'll still have to, at the next available rotation, submit engineering plans for the water and sewer line loops and go through a final before he can acquire a building permit, right? So we're not holding up his preliminary. The preliminary and the final are still tracked in the same timeline, as well as the harvesting of the building permit. So to answer your question, no, it should not affect his harvesting of the building permit timeline. What it does is, though, delay his entitlement side of things to get a clear indication of how the fire lanes and the building footprint works.
So in other words, if we approve that part tonight, and let's say the mayor goes talk to the school district and they say, yeah, we'll move the bus stop back, we can add that or change it at that time.
You can, in your motion, when you say we'll approve the preliminary plat, and we got some variances that we need to discuss, minus the placement of the fire lanes and access points shown on the preliminary plat, knowing that they may be adjusted based on further discussions, and then the applicant can file a final plat based on those negotiations, and not have him go through another preliminary plat, if that makes sense. But that would not prolong his plat tracking.
So that still leaves open further deliberation on entrances or not?
It's up to you. If you like what you see in this plat application, you can approve it as submitted, and that's the concept approval, and we can expect the final plat mimicking what we see on the preliminary. If you have hesitation and you want to hear from the GISD, for example, you can approve the preliminary with the exception of the placement of the fire lanes and the access points, expecting a filing of the final, any adjustments based on those deliberations. There may be a final that was submitted to say, hey, these deliberations went nowhere, but at least you know what those deliberations were at the time the final plat was filed. And you can make adjustments on the final as well.
Okay.
So it's an option available to you. Again, you can approve it as submitted. But Mayor, if I may, I'm going to touch on the variances real quick. I know we went through these at the last meeting point. I'm going to go through them very quickly. But I do think, since this is a public hearing, they need to be discussed for record. These are the options that came out of P&Z. Approve a variance to section 39 and 45 to not extend an 8-inch sewer main along 377 of Sardius. The developer proposes to tie into an existing sewer main located west of the property. Again, we discussed this at the last meeting. There is continuation of the sewer on the backside, and we have the to and through requirement, and there's no need to extend the to and through. Both this property and the adjoining property to the east have access to sewer, and it actually terminates at 377 frontage on the east side of the Toyota dealership. There's a variance to section 3.1 and 410 to not approve 377 to an urban standard template. It's got bar ditches. We know that it's planned to actually be a 6-lane facility when TxDOT gets some funding for it. And approval of the variance to Section 36A4 to not provide commercial standard sidewalks along 377. A note has been added to the plat stating that when sidewalks are made available contiguous to the property, that it will be installed. So those are the standard notes. Be happy to entertain any questions. And if I may, Mayor, I'd like to hear from the attorney regarding the action on the plat and all the options available, if he concurs with that as well.
Stewart? Sounds good to me. I think you outlined everything for that the council can consider.
And council, once again, I mean, we can do it. We can do this one right now, the preliminary plat, or we can do both of them still, and we can always bring these stop signs and anything else that we have to, which we've done before, bring the stop signs and things like that back to the council. I don't think that the speed bumps, well, they might have to too, and I feel pretty confident addressing the issue with the school. We can get that bus stop wherever the citizens want it at down there, or wherever it's regulated for a handicap. So, with that said, council, we'll go to number 2 first, the public hearing requesting the SUP. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve it with the with agreement that we can get the Granbury Independent School District to move the bus stop.
Okay, now word that again, Councilman Allen.
I approve item number 2.
You want to make a motion to?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to approve item number 2 with the exceptions of you, the mayor, get approval from the Granbury Independent School District to get the bus stop moved. Putting it on you, Mayor.
So we're entertaining a motion that recommends the approval of the SUP to allow for the use of the auto sales, major auto repair, and defined within the city zoning ordinance as depicted on the applicant's site plan to support the SUP, and to request the mayor to talk to the school or to, okay, Mickey's shaking his head.
He didn't include the SUP.
You don't want to include this?
Don't want to include what, Mayor?
I'm asking Mr. Parsons.
His motion didn't include the SUP.
Well, I'm cleaning it up a little bit for him. What do you, say your motion again,
well,
Mr.
don't put
Allen.
words in his mouth. I don't mind you cleaning things up, but don't put words in his mouth.
Okay.
Say your motion again, Mr. Allen.
All right, I make a motion for a special use permit to allow sales of new and used autos, heavy commercial district, and consider approval and ordinance provided for said SUP, property located at the corner of Highway 377 and Cyrus Boulevard, with one exception, that you, the mayor, Nan Hewlett, gets Granbury Independent School District to move the bus stop.
Okay, Council, you've got a motion. I'd rather it be that I talk to him about moving it, but we'll get it moved.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Council.
I have a little bit of concern as to tying a land use requirement to another government entity's actions on something. That's my concern. We have no idea what GISD is going to do, and I don't know how you approve a land use entitlement contingent on what another government agency may or may not choose to do.
I agree. I would consider me talking to the Granbury Independent School District on that topic. Making a commitment right here that they will do it is pretty broad there. So,
Mr. Mayor, call point of order, no second.
Okay, we don't have a second. So it fails for lack of a second.
Did you ask for a second, Mayor?
Yes, I did.
I didn't hear you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion
We have a motion by Councilman Parsons.
that we approve a request of Mike Brown for a preliminary plat of a 10.31 acre tract of the Joshua Minette Survey, abstract number 351, Lot 1, Block 1 of the Mike Brown Dodge Edition, and consider and approve that preliminary plat conditionally as to final plat in that the possibility of changes in fire lanes and access points.
Second.
Does that include the variances?
And with finding as to all the variances.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Parsons.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Couch. Is there any more discussion on the preliminary plat?
I have one question, Mayor.
Councilman Allen.
When will we be told what the changes are going to be?
On the preliminary plat?
Yes.
Changes we're voting on the changes that are there right now. We dropped down to preliminary plat now. We're not on the...
Mr. Parsons' motion, though, said with some changes, maybe with some changes, I believe, didn't you?
Once conditionally based on fire lane and access point revision.
And I'm asking, what time period are we putting on that, or is that would be up to Mr. Brown to get back with us?
Scott?
Would you like me to respond there? So hypothetically, if we approve the plat with the variances with this type of condition, and hypothetically, if the SUP is tabled, we can table it to the next meeting where an opportunity is afforded to meet with GISD and come back on the SUP and deliberate on where those hopefully final access points are. Once the site plan, of course, the SUP has a site plan attached to it, and once that site plan is approved delineating where those access points are, then the filed final plat can follow suit and dovetail in the fire lanes with those adjusted access points if they are adjusted.
Okay, and this motion will take care of the 17th?
His motion on the plat is to approve the preliminary plat with the variances and recognizing in the motion that there may be some changes in the fire lanes and access points, but not holding up the preliminary plat is the way I understood it. Is that the right, Mr. City Attorney? Okay. No motion has been made on the SUP as of yet.
Understand? You do. Okay, we have a second. Is there any more discussion, council? All in favor of that preliminary plat motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, the preliminary plat motion that was presented is approved. Now, let me back up on this. We can't table this, and this is going to have to be, because you can't do the preliminary without...
No, you can table the SUP. But
It'd have to be tabled, but we didn't table it.
Not yet. You haven't done anything to it yet.
So, council, we need to drop back up to the number 2, the SUP.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we table the SUP consideration until the first meeting in May.
Second.
Have we got a date on the meeting there? Tell you what?
May 6th, 6
May
o'clock, 116 Bridge.
Okay, we have a motion to table that SUP till the first meeting in May the 6th at 6 o'clock in the Granbury, in the City Council chambers. Have a second?
Second it.
A second, Councilman Allen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Just as the sidebar comment, Mayor, between now and the 1st of May or the 6th of May, is there anything that staff needs to do to work with the architect, or is that something that some council members are going to do to feedback to staff in order to make known to the architect the needed adjustments on the site plan? if there is, just be happy to assist in any way.
Stop sign, speed
I would like for you to see work with the developer and see if you can get them to do away with the entrance too. That would help a lot. That would clear the neighborhood up, it would keep the traffic out of there, and it would give them relief from the encroachment of the commercial business.
Can I say if you do that, then you just vote down, because I can't tell it that day.
Okay, thanks, appreciate that.
Yes, Scott, we will bring all these issues hopefully to you, whether it be stop signs, speed bumps, bus stops, all that good stuff.
The traffic control devices will work with Alva and the traffic committee. Anything relative to the site plan itself that we need to filter over to the architect or the site designer, we'll be certainly happy to accommodate.
Okay. Thank you. Our next item is to consider and approve an amendment to paragraph A in section 6, enforcement of the drought contingency plan of the City of Granbury, Texas, 2002, to raise the cost of fines for violations of that said plan. I'm going to call upon Alva Cox to talk on this one just a little bit. He's been working on a new contingency plan there.
Mayor, council, obviously we all know the drought hadn't been getting any better. It's been getting worse as we go. And currently, going back through our drought contingency plan, right now our fines are like $35 to $100 max for violations. What we did is we actually went and we looked at 6 different cities, and I think you should have that in your packet. We had City of Weatherford, City of Mineral Wells, Cleburne, and so forth. What you'll see on most of those, and again, it's a range, and I think Stuart here in a minute can clarify a couple of them on the $500, and I believe that's the limit, is it not, Stuart? Is the maximum for?
The maximum range of punishment for a Class C misdemeanor is $500.
So, and that's where most of these are at. Again, they range. You've probably seen the news all the way from City of Richardson, I believe even Citywide Settlement. Theirs is actually $2,000. However, I believe, again, this is not with the drought contingency. I think theirs is with the subdivision ordinance or something like that, which is a little bit different, I believe, as well. So that's why theirs is so high, so you'll get that. But however, the way ours is set up, the highest that we can go is up to $500. And that's kind of where we were looking at is to see what we can do. Because again, 35 to 100 we felt like was a little bit low far as, and again, what's happening, we are in stage 2. We have been in stage 2 for about 3 years. Hopefully we do not get any worse. However, as we can see, the lake conditions I was looking at today, the level was 682.76. I mean, that's one of the lowest I've seen ever. So these are things that we do need to start looking at, and this is something that I was wanting to bring forth to y'all to see kind of, to get y'all's feedback on, you know, where we wanted to go with this, how high we wanted to go. And then once we did this, or once y'all come up with a number, on the next meeting, we will bring back to you a resolution with the amendments in it to reflect y'all's wishes.
Thank you, Alva. Council, do you have any discussion or any questions for Alva?
Alva, Mayor.
Councilman Allen?
You know, we just sat here and told Mike Brown he was going to have to plant big trees, big shrubs, and all that. Where are they going to get the water to water this stuff? And, you know, if you're going to ration water and water once a week, I was in the landscape business for 18 years, and you got to water it, keep it alive. Correct. How do you get around that? We're sitting here forcing them to spend thousands, not just Mr. Brown, but all residential or commercial, and said, how are we going to water it?
I guess, let me try to answer it in one way. The drought contingency will actually, this supersedes anything else we have, okay? As far as all the way, far as, once this kicks in, I mean, it supersedes all of our other ordinances as far as what you're talking about on the landscaping and so forth. We also did come back with the landscaping ordinance that was a little bit drought, I guess, tolerant per se, is what we've done as well so far as on the trees and the plantings and things like that to also reflect this. But again, if we go into a stage 4, we go into a stage 5, there'll be no outside watering. There will be no plants. I mean, that you know, that's something we don't want to happen. What we do want to do is get the word out and let everybody know that, hey, this is very serious what we're dealing with right now. And if you look around, Mineral Wells, they have less than 400 days of water supply left. That's it. They're out of water. Several other cities, Wichita Falls right now, they're trying to use wastewater to, come back into their system because they're also in stage 5. And what we're trying to do is we don't want to go there. Our water system we're trying to maintain, but during the summer months we do get taxed very seriously. And the bad part is normally we go from about 1.6 million to 1.8 million. That's our average, and then we go up to 3.2 to 3.5 in the summer. So that tells you that's all irrigation right there. And so a lot of this, it can be fixed. You can still water, but the thing is, a lot of them, like the violation, are actually with these. What this will pertain to is the hours that you water, because that makes a big difference when you're watering, when you're not. You still have actually within stage 2, you're able to water twice a week, as far as that goes. But what this is also going to get is you also have today drive down the road and I see a stream of water 6 to 8 inches just going down the ditch. This is what we're trying to prevent. These are the things, and what we do now and what we have been doing is we go out and we warn these people, hey, you can't do this, you need to fix your sprinklers or whatever the case may be. You don't water the sidewalks, and I can tell you, just driving to City Hall in the morning, I can see 10 or 12 of them doing it. The sidewalks are all nice and wet. And so this is what we're trying to do, is more of that. Not so much as trying to prevent people from watering, but it's watering smart. All the way from you get a rainstorm, and you notice and you look out here, and all of a sudden you see sprinklers kicking on. Okay, it's just not necessary. I mean, we have to be smart, and I think everybody in the state of Texas, we're going into 4 years of drought, and these are the things that we need to be smart with.
No, I agree, you have 100%, but I'm just saying that, if we find them $100 or $500, and you just get through spending $50,000 for a landscape job, what do you do?
Yeah.
Is there something,
you have a valid point. Yeah.
Is there something there, Stuart, that we might not be able to do it the way the agenda's written tonight, but how do we address new homes or new businesses in landscape?
I think you just keep in mind that the zoning ordinance was changed recently to allow for much more drought-tolerant plants and xeriscaping, which was done by this council with the foresight that you are in a drought and wanting to relieve the burden of the businesses and the homeowners to not have to plant those formerly required plants that took up a lot of water. You now require a lot of plants that are hardy in the summer months and are a lot more drought tolerant. And so I don't know, and I'm not a landscape guy, so I don't know, but it's my understanding that you don't have the same issue that you did a year ago, because the zoning ordinance has been changed with that kind of this plan in mind.
I think you're right on the shrubs and stuff, but I believe, and Scott's gone now, but I believe on that plan it showed 3-inch live oak trees with Mike Brown's deal.
I would just say the zoning ordinance allows for a whole list of different types of trees.
And that was a choice.
And that's a choice.
That was his choice.
Right.
Yeah. There's a whole list, in the ordinance, there's a whole list of different types of plants you can use that are acceptable.
And that's true, and that is true. And same with the shrubs and so forth, so.
And Councilman Allen, we are working on that plan to put in some, or to change our ordinance to where it's drought resistance, rocks, cactus, whatever it takes. But what we're considering here, what's on the agenda here is how do we want to enforce this, because we have to step up now and start really enforcing our requirements. If we identify it as water 2 days, then that's what it is, and we have to enforce that. We probably are slacking in that, and we also probably have the $35 fine. And what we're asking tonight is, do we want to up that fine? We want to bring that fine up. And I've talked to the police department. They don't go out and fine them the first offense. They probably won't do it the second offense, but they give them the warnings, and then they react to it. They enforce it. So that's what we're asking right now. At what level do we want to fine these folks? I mean, if you're fining them $35, it's kind of like a slap on the hand, and if somebody's trying to save a yard or whatever, they're going to go ahead and pay the 35 probably. Do we fine them $100, $200, or up to the $500? That's what we're asking tonight at the council.
Correct. Okay, that's what they had here in our minutes. Is first notice yellow? That's what you're talking about, Albert?
Right.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay,
And then a red, and then eventually we cut them off.
yeah.
Correct.
What's the stage 3 restrictions?
The stage 3, basically what we go into is stage 2, for example, is we look for a 30% reduction. Stage 3, we actually look for a 45% reduction, and the hours are pretty much, it's pretty close to stage 2, except for we do start asking for the 45%. And I was trying to think if the hours change a little bit more. I don't think they start changing as far as on the watering until stage 4.
Okay.
So
How often do they revise the drought map?
I don't know as far as that. I mean, I know I look at it every day. You see the little red, you can pull it up on there.
Yeah.
PCQ, yes, sir. But as far as their time, I don't know if it's a monthly what they do or how they do that.
Because what I've learned is that a condition of drought, one of the numbers in the parameters is lake levels.
Correct.
If you look at the Lower Colorado River Authority, it's a little red ribbon running right down through there from the River Authority overselling the water. So with our lake being at its low level, we might be pushed into a code 4 at any point in time.
Yes, sir, we could.
Yeah.
And ours is more geared toward, and is reservoirs, is actually capacity levels plus usage is what it's for. So for example, if even say we're doing, say, 2.5, on a daily basis, or actually it's 3.1, I believe, this next stage. So we're hitting 3.1 million gallons a day, but our overall tanks start dropping down below 50% and so forth. That could also trigger it up too. So you have several different triggers.
Okay.
And I think it's important for the council to know that we recently had to lower our intake on our water plant because it was sucking air. So we had to go to the lower level, and we think we've solved that now.
Yes, sir. And what we did is we went to, we actually have floating pumps now. So that way we can kind of, as the water levels drop, and it drops with it instead of having it fixed. Because yes, as the city manager said, I mean, right now we'd probably be about 5 feet out of the water right now.
And that's the plant there by the bypass?
Yeah, yeah. And so, we feel we're fine now. In fact, we are below the level where the nuclear plant requires.
Yes,
right?
675. We're below the 675, so.
But the lake is definitely having an impact on our water supply. Yeah.
Correct.
Excuse me, ma'am, it's not a public hearing. It's not a public hearing. Hold that thought. Is there any more questions to Alva, council? Like I said, we're just voting on to reinforcement and to enforce the codes that we've set up. So do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve it as presented by staff.
I have a motion by Councilman Parsons. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Councilman Perkle. Is there any more discussion, council?
Well, the proposal here shows that we've got 2 notices before anything is done, and then we have a 3rd notice where you have a $100 administrative fee being added to the water bill. So it doesn't appear to be particularly onerous. But I think probably what a lot of us are going to be doing is we're going to end up burning our yards up and letting them go over the next 20 or 30 years.
Very possible.
I'm going to quit water mine.
No, let me clarify real quick. So we wanted to go up to the 500, make sure.
Councilman Parsons,
Go ahead.
shake his head, yes.
The second part of that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Make sure that's clarified.
Okay, no more discussion, council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. It is approved.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just clarify, based on tonight's council vote, staff will bring forward the formal resolution
Right.
making the amendment at the next meeting, possibly on consent agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is to consider and approve naming the new skate park, Granbury Skate Park, and consider park signage to include language reading dedicated in honor of Keith Callahan. I'm going to call upon Aaron McLean to talk about that one a little bit.
Mayor, council, would y'all mind if Chair Jean Kate joined me up here from the Parks and Rec Board?
They're her parks.
It's her park.
All right. If I could, I'd like to read a letter that the board has drafted in regards to the naming of the skate park. It is with profound honor and gratitude that we submit this letter of recommendation in support of dedicating the Granbury Skate Park, now under construction, to Mr. Keith Callahan. He worked very diligently for the city for 34 years and was dedicated to this project as well as many others. The Parks and Recreation Board strongly feels his efforts and all he has done for the citizens of Granbury should be permanently recognized and commemorated. Additionally, Mr. Callahan made it clear in our numerous efforts to approach him on this subject that he believed it would be best to name the park Granbury Skate Park in order for the city to be recognized in the park's eminent notoriety. We respect his wishes and believe it is the best way to represent the city. We proudly recommend the dedication of this park to Mr. Callahan and will support any effort to make it happen. So what they're requesting is to name the park in letters, Granbury Skate Park.
Right.
And then perhaps in either a plaque or some smaller letters, either under or next to Granbury Skate Park name, have the letters in dedication of Keith Callahan.
You don't have that picture, but council, it does have the little shape of the Comanche
right.
Peak, I think, in front of it, where you'll have an opportunity to probably even put some other naming rights on the front of that, like they have at Marble Falls, I'm hoping maybe, but what you're indicating that you want to put a plaque in the middle or somewhere thereabouts, dedicating that to Keith Callahan.
Yeah, we prefer letters.
Separate letters.
The lettering Granbury Skate Park would be offset to the left, and this is like a 4-foot tall concrete face that's actually tinted, not stained, it's tinted a tan color. And we would like to put Granbury Skate Park in the Granbury green lettering, and it would be the raised metal letters. And that is included in our contract with the Spa Skate Park contractor. But we would like to put in the same lettering, perhaps smaller, over to one side, dedicated to Keith Callahan.
I can't hear.
She wants to make it look exactly like the skate park.
Right. Have it tie in with the other lettering in the skate park.
Council, you have any questions for Aaron and Park?
I have a question for the attorney. I had always thought that we would want to name our airport after Keith Callahan, based on his hard work on that, and we miss Keith and his service to the city. So if we do this dedication in honor of Keith Callahan, will that keep me from naming the airport after him?
I don't believe so.
All right. I'll make a motion we approve the Granbury Skate Park and that we indicate a dedication in honor of Mr. Keith Callahan, a wonderful citizen of the city of Granbury, and we appreciate his service.
We have a motion by Councilman Parsons. We have a second? We have a second by Councilman Allen. Council, any more discussion on this issue?
I'd like for us to see a drawing of that before it's actually done.
We could provide that. We currently have a drawing that has the name Granbury Skate Park. We do not have a drawing that has in dedication of for anybody. If we
you can just shoot us an email or whatever.
Well, in deference to Keith's modesty, what we had thought was the Granbury Skate Park, and then down on the lower right-hand corner, dedicated to Keith Callahan. In much smaller letters, but just so that it's noticeable.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that is approved.
Thank you,
folks.
Council, Mayor.
Thank you, Parks Board.
Our next item is to consider and approve a request from the staff to write off inactive utility accounts with the balances for the final accounts. I want to call upon Ava to come up and talk to the council a little bit about these delinquent accounts.
Mr. Mayor.
Write-off accounts, I'm sorry.
Mr. City Manager, Council.
Every year, we evaluate these accounts once a year and bring them to you. These are inactive, final accounts with unpaid balances with 1 year or older. And at this point, we write them off against uncollectible bad debt account and turn them over to our outside collection agency, Credit System International. Your agenda also has included the item that shows you the history since 1992. The percentage of write-off has been less than around 0.5%. And at this time, what is presented to you is the write-off amount is a little over $167,000. This includes two components. One is $143,000 for fiscal year 2012 and 13, and the other one is $24,000 for the current fiscal year, the first quarter of this fiscal year. After analyzing the percentage of collection by the collection company, what they have done for us over the years, we find the percentage is very low, and we identified that it's because by the time we turn over these accounts to them, they are extremely old and uncollectible most of the time. So we would like to implement a new policy where, first of all, in-house, we will make every attempt to collect these accounts. We will send out at least 3 statements to inform the customer that the accounts are not paid. We will attempt to call them and email them as well. After that, these accounts will be turned over to the collection agency every 3 months. This policy is also attached to your agenda that describes the steps we want to take in-house. And I want to add that since October 31st, our bad debt balance has actually decreased. At that time, it was $172,000. We are at $167,000 now. Our utility manager, Cindy Klein, had made every attempt to collect on the bad debt, called most of the accounts personally, and collected over $12,000. So our attempt right now have been depleted on this $167,000, what we are introducing to you, and that's the reason we want to turn it over to the collection agency at this time. We believe that the new process, what we are introducing to you, evaluating these accounts every 3 months, making every attempt in-house to collect on them, and then turn it over to the collection agency, not only will increase the percentage of collection, but also our cost to pay the commission to the collection agency will decrease. And lastly, we have seen decrease in bad debt because of the implementation of our new deposit structure in January, where we require 2 months of deposit. So we now have sufficient deposits on new accounts that we open as well. So with that, staff recommends to go forward with the write-off of these unpaid balances and turning them over to the collection agency at this time, as well as implementing the new policy of reviewing these accounts every 3 months, turning it over to the collection agency at the time.
David? Council, do you have any questions for Ava?
So this amount is well within the allowance that's been allocated over the years?
It's a little bit higher at this point. It's 0.76 for fiscal year 2012 and 13, because we are more aggressive with the write-off amount. At this point, compared to last year, we would have stopped writing off these amounts last March. We are carrying it forward all the way to December, because our attempt previously, and I'm not really sure why, was only write-off accounts that are 1 year old or older. But at that time, there was nothing else we can do in-house to collect on these amounts. So these accounts were just sitting there, with no attempt to be collected on. So we don't see any point on doing that after we deplete in-house collection efforts. As I said, sending out those 3 statements, phone calls, emails, there's not much we can do. So at that time, we would like to turn them over to the collection agency and give them a chance to be able to collect on it while the account is still new, fairly new.
After the slowdown in the economy, the write-offs began to grow,
Began to grow.
as you can see on this, this presentation. And
Right,
so
very clear.
that's why we've tried to do things to offset that. And one is the quicker movement to collection agencies, and the other is the...
And we write them off when we move them to collection.
We write them off. We don't stop trying to collect them. We just write them. We're required financially on our financial statements to reflect a reasonable allowance. And therefore, we go ahead and take these accounts off our books because we don't want to show it as something that's owed to us that we don't think we're going to collect it. And so that's what we do.
Council, any more questions for Ava? Thank you, Ava. Council will entertain a motion to approve the write-offs of the inactive utility accounts with the balance for the final accounts.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Couch. Have a second? I have a second by Councilperson Myers. Any more discussion, council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Those are approved.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Additionally, can we go forward with evaluating and turning over these accounts every 3 months to the collection agency as well? Or, because the process has been to come to you every year, once a year. So if we do it every 3 months, the balance should be much lower. Do you require us to come and introduce these balances to you?
I think operationally, we can just do that and just report to you once a year. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just do it that way.
Thank you.
Our next item is to consider request of the Hood County Geological Society for the city of Granbury to share in the cost of replacing the air conditioning unit at the Granbury Railroad Depot and consider related budget transfer. This item was placed on there by the city council agenda by your mayor here. Karen Nash came to me and sometime and discussed the item, and I went over and looked at the railroad depot over there. I've never been over there. It's pretty interesting over there. And we do lease that from the railroad, and they are the leasors. Am I correct in that, Wayne? And there's a contract with that, but they are considering, their air conditioner is shot. They keep putting Freon in it. They can't keep it going. So they're asking the city to share in the cost of a new unit, and I've reviewed the unit, and it's a local, and it's a pretty good unit. So I'm gonna ask Karen to come up and talk a little bit about what goes on there. Are you still here? There you are. Talk a little bit about the depot.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, and Finance. Appreciate it. Some faces I recognize, some I don't. Hi, Laura. You have questions about the depot? I didn't get any phone calls. I think you all know where it is, right?
Right.
Down by the railroad track.
What has been the history of the depot as it relates to the city?
Did you provide the handouts that I gave you to all the board members?
Why don't you speak right into the mic here, Karen, because it's pretty hard to hear you there.
Did you provide the handouts that I left with you to all the board members? The chronological history?
They got them. Whatever's in the council agenda is what they've got. They've got pretty much the history and stuff.
Okay.
We have the lease of the land from by the city of the Granbury.
Yeah.
We gave them the lease.
Karen, why don't you kind of let the council know what you do over there and what the activities have been going on right now, if you would, please?
Well, we are very integrally involved with tourism, and I think that's important to the city. And part of what I was presenting to you in our information are where the people come from. We have a fully functional website, so people can contact us for genealogical information, which is a lot of what's housed there. But we also have a train museum. So we get a significant variety of people. We get the genealogical researchers who can either contact us through mail or physically show up, and some do both. I gave you a list of the different places that we've had people come from, as far away as Alaska, as close as Granbury. In the numbers, I didn't repeat over and over how often people from Fort Worth and Granbury or Lipan and Toller come. Their name is only represented once, but Oklahoma, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and some of them make this a travel point. because they know their family originated here. We hold a lot of records that were disposed of by the county. They've been indexed, they're available for anybody for research. So we have that group, and it's a fairly large group of visitors that come annually. We also have the train aficionados who like to come by and make a point. We even have some who are going state to state trying to find every old depot that they can. And then we have just the curiosity seekers who want to know what this brick building is that's sitting down by the railroad tracks. So those are the kinds of people that come through our building. We have it open as much as possible. Currently, the schedule's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So we're open 4 days a week. We also have our phone numbers posted on the door so that anyone can call us anytime, and we'll schedule appointments beyond the normal schedule. But as part of tourism, we rely solely on donations. We have no other means of income. We have a couple of fundraisers we've tried over the years. They don't bring in a lot of money, and obviously fundraising has fallen off along with the economy. So we're to the point now, in order to keep the building habitable, to protect the artifacts and the memorabilia that we have there, it needs to be reasonably climate controlled. As the mayor indicated, and I showed in here, about 3 years ago, we put a little over $200 worth of Freon. It went up to almost $400. Last year, we put over $600 worth of Freon in our air conditioner. This year, we can't even do that because the coil has a leak in it that can't be repaired. So putting Freon in will serve no purpose. So we're looking to replace the entire HVAC system to one that will probably outlive us. At least that's our intent. If you have any questions.
What SEER is it? Did you get one of the highest ratings?
The SEER rating on this one, I believe, is 15. Because once we got higher than that, it was sort of out of our price range to even ask for half.
So my understanding is that the city of Granbury leased that property from the adjacent Topeka and Santa Fe
Yes.
for $1 a year, and I believe that happened in 1983. And then shortly after there, the city subleased that property to the HCG, to the Hood County Genealogical Society.
Genealogical and historical, yes, sir.
Genealogical and historical.
Yes, it was combined effort.
And so we subleased that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying, so then the city, whenever we subleased it to you, did we retain any maintenance requirements or insurance requirements?
No, we included that on the background to say, and we gave you, the staff wanted to point out that the contract clearly states that it's the full responsibility of the user, of the lessee from us. Yeah.
Wow.
Council, any more questions?
I've got one there.
Ms. Parson, was you done? Pardon? Was you done?
Yeah, I'm perplexed.
Councilman Allen?
Who pays electrical down there?
We do.
Y'all do?
We pay all the expenses. We carry the liability insurance. The city, under their lease, was required to maintain building insurance.
Here's my question to Stuart. I just read Saturday's paper where the county had turned down Mission Granbury on paving their parking lot. Do we have a conflict here or not? And what's the difference?
I didn't read Saturday's paper, so I'm not familiar with that. But I will tell you that under the Constitution, you generally cannot spend public funds in donation to a nonprofit entity, which is why you can't, I would assume that that's what the county attorney referenced when in her decision, but I'm not sure. I haven't spoken to her about that, but that would be my guess. Equally, you wouldn't be able to provide staff members or who are on city pay to do those kind of activities because it'd be like donating money. However, this is a situation where you're not necessarily donating money, but you're renovating a building that you're leasing out on a long-term lease. So I think that that's different.
So you feel like by us doing the lease, then it would be legal?
Yeah, 'cause I don't think you're giving money to the Genealogical Society. I think you're giving money to renovate your building that you lease.
Same as we do the Opera House?
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar.
What are we making off that lease a year?
$1.
Dollar a year?
It's cost $1 a year. I don't even know if we pay the dollar, but there has been talk, and I pulled a whole folder out, council, and there's been a lot of talk. Some time ago, the city tried to buy that, and the railroad, they have to go through a lot of red tape to do that, and Karen explained a lot of that to me along with Wayne, but they said we would just as soon let you keep leasing it or let you have the place, and we'll charge you $1 a year, I think it is, and so it is a tourist attraction that brings people through there. It puts people in our hotels and stuff, and I think Karen's got a plan to make this thing even a better attraction over there, and they maintain, like she said, they maintain the building. They did put a new roof on it, didn't you guys?
No, it's not.
You did not? Okay.
No. I believe the roof was put on in the 80s. That's prior to my being here.
Sure.
But I've gone through all the old records. I got involved in the mid-90s, and since then, we have spent our own money. We've already put one heating system in somewhere around 2000, and that's the one that's failing now. They kind of lowballed it. They went out and got their 3 bids, due diligence, but unfortunately, when they went with the lowest bid, it wasn't probably lowest best bid, and it just has not held up.
How many visitors do y'all have that go through there a year?
I think I provided those numbers in.
I didn't get a copy of them,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We didn't do that.
I went back as far as 2011 to see, we had 220 people who signed our book, which doesn't include the locals for the most part. We encourage anyone who comes in and is touring, is doing research, whatever. So in 2011, we had 222. 2012, we had 187. 2013, we had 220. And this year already, we've had over 60. Those people generally spend, we open 1 to 4, a lot of times we're there 10 or 11, and they will take off, go to the square, or go off for lunch. They will come back and do research. We may send them to the county. They may come back. Some of them spend multiple days here. That means hotel, motel.
What is your hours there?
I'm sorry?
What hours are you open?
Your hours you're open.
Our hours, right now, we guarantee we're there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, 1 to 4. But as I said, oftentimes, some of us are in 10 or 11 o'clock. We have an experienced works person who does cooperate with us, that we're working that program to extend our hours. Right now, we have 1 person, and that's how we maintain our afternoons. But I know Melba goes in, Jim goes in, I go in, several of us are there throughout the week, additional hours.
And that is on the Candlelight Tour, isn't it?
Yes.
That building?
It has been.
So you probably get a lot of people don't sign that comes through there on that one. Huh?
Yeah, this doesn't count any Candlelight Tour people that come through.
Councilman Couch?
And the requested amount is $3,600, basically?
Yes, we've raised 3610, I think, and the amount with the whole unit would be a little over 7,200, and that includes a 3-year maintenance agreement that I think is necessary.
What's the warranty on it?
That's why we're doing them. It has the warranty. The train has the full warranty plus a 3-year maintenance agreement built in. So there's no cost. They'll come out twice a year for 3 years.
Okay.
Well, I believe that the benefit to our community and to tourism, that $3,600 is a bargain, so I'm in
Thank you,
favor.
sir.
Any more questions for Karen? Okay, council, any more? Do I have a motion? I think I got a motion there from Councilman Couch
I'll second that.
to approve the 360650 for the air conditioning unit, and we have a second by Councilman Perkle. Is there any more discussion, council?
I just want to make sure with Stuart, you're saying we're legal to do this, Stuart.
You have a building under lease, and part of your lease says that you're going to maintain that building.
Okay.
And then you
This is a lot-
subleased it to somebody else. So
This
if
is a
you
lot
want,
cheaper than 3.2 billion, or whatever it was on our.
Just to clarify, though.
We think this is a
We have a
capital
sublease that
improvement,
says
sir.
they won't do it, but you're okay with it?
that's
Okay.
right. And if you want to waive that requirement in your sublease, you know.
Okay.
Can we take this out of the tourist budget instead of general funds?
We can do whatever you want to.
I'm just asking.
Wayne has found the money already, so.
Oh, he has?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Okay.
So that was my next question.
Yeah,
Where you
no,
gonna get the
we
money
were
at?
going to make a budget adjustment. I mean, we were going to go against the general fund. That was the plan, because this was unbudgeted.
Can be terrific.
Any more questions, council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Thank you.
That is approved.
Do
Thank you,
appreciate your
Karen.
help.
Thank you. People happy there, Mickey.
The next item is to consider and approve a resolution formally requesting that the TCEQ hold a public hearing at a sustainable location within the city limits before taking action on a renewal application for TPDS permit number WQ001481000, filed by De Cordova Power Plant, LLC, and Luminant Generation Company, LLC. This item here was placed on the agenda by Councilperson Parsons and Mayor Pro Tem Councilman Allen. I'm going to call upon Councilperson Parsons to kind of give us a little background there, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few weeks ago, or a few Saturdays ago, I think it was 2 Saturdays ago, in the Hood County News, there was back in the public notice section, there was a notification there that Luminant, De Cordova Power Company and Luminant Generation Company were applying for renewal of a permit. 2 or 3 people called me about that item, and we began to talk about it and look at it. I think what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling from the people I'm talking to is we just can't be complacent anymore about our water issue. We have to be active and proactive about that. Having not knowing a lot about what this, even what this permit relates to, although we do know it relates to the electric generating station in De Cordova. We do have there's a lot of concerns that come up and a lot of questions about that permit. So based on that, we began to be concerned that TCQ might not have a public hearing about this item or a public meeting about this item. People of Granbury are confused about how can you renew a permit when you've basically destroyed the building that was there before. They destroyed the power plants that were there before last fall. So now then, how are you going to renew a permit? Should it not be a permit application as opposed to a renewal? We have some other issues. We have a lot different lake than we had back when this permit was originally issued. We now have a lake that doesn't have any water in it, and it doesn't have any flow in it. What are the returns going to be? What are the potential contaminants? What is the potential heat in those returns? What does that do to our potential for reblooms of the golden algae? You raise the water temperatures, you raise the pollutants in the water. What does that possibly do to our already injured lake? So we have come up with a resolution to support a calling for a public hearing or a public meeting here in Granbury to talk about this permit. When I first wrote the resolution and it became an item on the agenda, we had asked that our state representative and that our state senator be a part of that process, that they would be asked by this council to make an application or write a letter to the TCEQ supporting this call meeting. That letter has already been written. Senator Birdwell and Representative Keffer signed off of a letter that went to TCEQ requesting a public meeting here in Granbury to talk about this permit. And I'm asking tonight that we pass a resolution that says we want a public meeting, we want a hearing here in Granbury so that the citizens of this community can talk to the TCEQ, the authority over this permit and the process, and get an answer to a lot of the questions that are beginning to surface about this item. And we will be asking that the mayor or the city manager send a copy of this resolution to the TCEQ general manager, and having attached to it that letter from Senator Birdwell and Senator Keffer asking for a meeting in Granbury to discuss what this permit does to our lake and what it does to our water issue here. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So basically, what we're asking for is to go ahead and have, well, I'll just read you the last statement. It says, "The City Council of the City of Granbury will direct the mayor to contact the State Representative Jim Keffer and State Senator Brian Birdwell and make inquiry into their ability and willingness to request on the city's behalf that TCEQ hold a public hearing or meeting prior to taking any formal action on the renewal application of this said number WQ0014810 within the territorial limits of the City of Granbury." So,
well, that has already occurred. They
Right,
have
that's already
sent their
occurred.
letter. So whenever I make the motion, it will be directing the mayor or the city manager to send a letter with our resolution attached and with the letter that had previously been sent to the TCQ, that it be sent to the TCQ and asking for a public hearing.
okay. But we are still asking for the resolution, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman Allen.
I agree with what Mickey was saying here. I had a few phone calls and emails. People concerned about our lake. I talked to a guy today, it was Woodluminant, Luminant. I pronounced it wrong.
Luminant.
They told me to spell it. But anyway, real nice guy, but he couldn't tell me what percent of the water is going to be returned back in our lake. And when I asked where the water was coming from, he said they worked a deal with BRA, but he didn't know if it's coming out of our lake or PK or where. And this is a real concern of ours as council up here. I'm speaking for myself now, and Mickey and I are on a coalition together. We've been fighting this for about a year and a half now, seem like, or longer. But we want to have a meeting, but we need to have this hearing also, because the hearing is whenever you'll get facts and not fiction, whatever that other word is. But that's why we're putting it that way as a hearing. We do want to have a meeting with them, but we'll want to also have a hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. Council, any other comments on this item?
Well, I appreciate Councilman Parson and Councilman Allen in bringing this issue to the council. I'm in total support of this.
Yeah, for one, I mean, I think everybody on the council got several phone calls. I think Councilman Allen and Parson just beat everybody to the draw there, which is a good thing, because they are on the coalition team there, and they work real hard to work with the attorneys and everybody else to try to see what we can do to get more water in the lake and to preserve the water in the lake. So I appreciate it also. Any more discussion? Okay, at this time, all in favor of, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to produce a resolution to the TCEQ indicating the City Council's request for a public meeting or public hearing here in the City of Granbury, supported by the request of our senator and our representative, and that request be made before any movement forward in this permitting process happen. And that our resolution is that we support, that we want this public hearing. I've wondered.
I second it.
Get all that, D? Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Parsons, pretty lengthy there, and we have a second by Councilman Allen. Any more discussion, council? Now's your time to put anything into it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That resolution will be accepted. At this time, the City Council will convene into executive session to deliberate in the following matters. Section 551071, consultation with the attorney, and Section 551074, personnel. All council people are present. We will return. At this time, we reconvene into open session. There was no action taken in executive session. If there's no further discussion, council meeting is adjourned.